Hey guys, in today's video, we are checking out the Shure ULX-D series. This is a very high-end, professional-level wireless system, and this video is going to apply whether you're using it with a handheld mic, with a body pack to use with instruments like guitar and bass, or to use it with a lavalier mic or a Britney mic, or even with the gooseneck that this series has. This is a very high-end and really reliable wireless system, and definitely worth looking into if you want a very solid, very reliable wireless system. This thing is also really nice because it does come with single, double, and quad receivers. That's all in one unit, and it all fits in one rack, so it's definitely worth it. I'm going to go over some of the setup, some of the extra features that this has compared to other wireless systems, go over how it works, go over all the menu options, compare this with the QLX series, which I did a previous video on, see why this is the next level up from that, and a couple other things. And I will say right off the bat that anytime that I play like a high-end event or like a festival or something where they provide wireless, it's usually this system is the one that they provide. They usually provide the ULX-D system. So before we get started, I post videos like this all the time, stuff on wireless, in-ear monitors, MIDI programming, gear reviews, stuff like that. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this in the future, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to ring the bell. All right, let's get started. Links to purchase any of these will be in the description down below, and I'll include all the different configurations that you can find. And just FYI, this video did take a long time to put together, so using those links down below to purchase is a free way to support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra to use those links. It's just a free way to support this channel, so I would really appreciate it if you do decide to buy the ULX system based on this video. All right, so the setup for this is very simple. You do get the antennas, so you can either attach them back here, like so, or you can put them in a rack, which it gives you all the stuff you need to do that. And then with the power, it actually does come with a little screw here so that when you plug it in and then you twist it so that it locks in place and then you don't accidentally unplug it, which is really nice. You never have to worry about it being unplugged. You do have an Ethernet port if you plan to use it with like wireless workbench and stuff like that. And it has this mic and line switch right here. So depending on what you're using it with. So if you're going to use it with a mic, you'd plug in an XLR and send that to wherever you're trying to send the signal to, like your in-ears or front of house. And then if you're using it with like a body pack or something like that at a line level, like with a guitar or something like that, switch it to line and plug this into your first pedal on your pedal board or your amp or wherever you're trying to send a line level signal. Flip it on. It's ready to go. So for this demo, I'm using a handheld mic. This is the Beta 87A, but the same idea will apply if you're using it with anything else. So you can either use two AA batteries or you can use one of the Shure lithium-ion batteries, which I will post a link in the description down below. I do recommend using those. It does give you a little bit more information of your batteries. The way you can tell that if this is working is you'll see the RF light up. So watch when I turn it on, it'll turn on. It's getting RF right there. And then when I talk into the mic, check, you can see the audio coming right there. And that is basically it. And I'll show you some of the more features here in a second. But first, let's talk specs. So for range, this is about 300 to 330 feet line of sight, which is excellent range for a wireless system. This system does provide the full frequency range. So that's from 20 hertz all the way up to 20 kilohertz. That is going to depend on the mic, of course. Some mics, will cut out below 80 hertz or something like that. But the system itself handles the full frequency spectrum. This has a 64 megahertz RF tuning bandwidth, which is a huge tuning bandwidth. So if you didn't watch my video on what to look for in a wireless guitar system, basically the RF tuning bandwidth, the larger the tuning bandwidth, the more channels that are available for you to find a clean channel. So if you only have a 10 megahertz RF tuning bandwidth, you only have within 10 megahertz that you can find a clean channel. 64 is a great number. There's plenty of room to find a clean channel in 64 megahertz RF tuning bandwidth. And that is actually the same as the QLXD, just pointing that out there. You can use up to 60 of these per band and up to 149 of these with multiple bands. So that's a lot. You can start using a lot of these wireless all at the same time, which is why you start paying a little bit more for these. There's more available channels, you can use more of them at once, and so on and so forth. Battery life is about 11 hours with standard AA's. That is about 2 hours better than the QLX. You get 12 hours with the SB900 lithium-ion battery, which is also about 2 hours better than the QLXD. So you get about 2 hours more from the QLX series. Some more advanced features that this has. This does have encryption AES 256. You do have an Ethernet port for updating the firmware and using with stuff like wireless workbench and other better software for advanced frequency management. Something that's really cool about the system is it comes in the single, dual, or quad receivers. So that's great if you're going to use more than one of these in like a rack. It only takes up one rack space and it only uses one pair of antennas, because one of the problems is with too many wireless, if you, no matter how good the system, if you have a ton of wireless antennas stacked right next to each other, you can get dropouts. So that's really nice to have 4 of these in one and only have one pair of antennas. Really great. It does also have dual and quad audio summing. So if you use the dual or the quad ones, you can sum the audio out one output instead of sending individual ones, which can be useful. This is available with Dante for audio. This isn't a video about that, but the QLX did not have Dante, but this one does have that. And you can set the RF power level to low, normal, or high with this system. All right, so some of the settings on the transmitter and the receiver. Grab some coffee because there's so many things that this thing can do. And I'm going to go over basically all of them. So the most important one that you're going to do is the scan for the best channel. So if you hit scan, I have to dim the screen a bit so that you can see what it's doing so the camera picks it up. But hit the scan button and you can either do a channel scan or a group scan. I'm just going to do a channel scan and it'll ask which group do you want to scan. So hit scan to continue. You couldn't even see how fast that scanned. It's just crazy how fast that was able to scan. If I do a group scan, it takes a little longer, but doing just a channel scan was nuts. And you can scroll through and see which of these channels so how many open frequencies it found. Basically picking the first one that it found is usually the best. So hit enter. And now it says to sync your transmitters. It syncs over infrared. So all you have to do is push the sync button right here. And then you bump your camera so that everything's out of frame. Hit sync, put it right next to it. And you can see it says sync success. And then you can see that these are now synced up. So pretty basic. You do have control over your gain right here, which you can turn up or down. And you can see on the gain right here, you can turn it up or down. So to go through most of these, you hit the main menu button right here, and then you have all these different options: radio, audio, edit name, IR presets, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go over basically what all of these do. Again, there is a lot of info coming. It's definitely worth it, so stick with me. So for radio, so you can manually set the channel right here. So I can set it to group 7, channel 8 if I wanted to specifically do that, or I can hit exit to not do that. Or you can actually manually set the channel right here. So if I wanted to set it to 521.200, I can do that manually as well. Scrolling down for audio, I can turn the gain up or down right here if I would like, but again, you have that control over here anyways. And then you do have a way to turn the mute on or off if you do need a quick mute, like if you're running an event or something like that. Scrolling down, you can edit the name, so you can actually change the name of this to whatever you would like it. It's just currently set to Shure, but you can name it Bob's mic. And then if you have another one, this is really helpful if you're using like 2 or 4 of them at once, so you always remember which one is which. Okay, IR presets. This is an interesting one. I actually had to look this one up. So you get your choice if you're using the gooseneck one or the body pack ones. They'll apply to the same thing. But say if I go into this handheld one, what I can set specifically when I'm using it with a handheld, if I want the pad to just keep whatever it is on here, or do I want to automatically set it to be at unity gain or at -12? I can set that here. When I turn on the system, do I want to lock the power, lock the menu, lock all of them, or none, or just keep it whatever it's at? So you get all those options automatically. So you can set it for the RF power, the battery, all sorts of different options in here. But so if you turn it on, you want the transmitter to automatically be set to these settings, you can do that in here, which is really cool. And you get different control over the gooseneck and the body pack / handheld. Pretty sweet. You get info on the transmitter. So you can see that here. So you can see, you don't really get to change anything in here, but you can see that it's a handheld. It's in the G50 band. And some of these other settings, which I'm going to go over in the transmitter settings. But you can see that here if you need to. Battery info, also you can see that as well. All right, device utilities. This is where there's quite a bit of stuff. So the encryption, you can turn the encryption on or off. You have this auto, or you can manually set it, which, I think most of the time you're just going to put it on for encryption if you would like the encryption on. And when you turn it on, it'll ask you to sync now for the encryption, so it'll sync up automatically. But, I didn't do that, so let's just go ahead and set that off for right now. So advanced RF, I'm going to come back to here in a little bit. You can lock certain things. So do you want the menu to be locked? Do you want the gain to always be locked? The power to be locked? The ability to scan, or the ability to sync as locked? So that can be nice so that nobody accidentally bumps this. Like no one accidentally bumps scan and then screws it up or something like that. Or so no one accidentally changes the gain. You have that option there. The home info, what would you like to see? So as you scroll through, you can see you're getting different displays on here. So you can change it to the name, which right now it's Shure. You can see what frequency it's on specifically. You can see the group and the channel, and then in big letters, you can see the frequency, or you can leave it up here, which is usually the one that I like, which gives you the most information. But you can change that there. The display, you can change the contrast of it. So how much contrast if you really want to. The brightness is nice. So if you don't want, a super bright light coming from the back of the stage, you can do that. But if you need to really see or you're really blind, you can turn that up here. Network, so Shure Control, this is if you're using it with like some external software or hardware, which video isn't really about, but you can control that here and you can see more info here on how to do that, but that's not really what this video is about. The transmitter firmware update. So this is where you update the transmitter, which is pretty cool. So when you do a firmware update, you update the receiver and then you update the transmitter with infrared, which is really cool. System reset, which I'm obviously not going to do. And you can also see more info on what version this is and stuff like that. Okay, going back to the advanced RF. So you have this high density mode, so you can turn it on or off. So high density is basically if you need more channels in less distance, you can use this. So you can find more channels available, but you do get a little bit less distance. So that's valuable if you're using a lot of these at once. Interference, this is my favorite thing about this system. So you turn it off or on. I don't know why you would never want it on. I would just always leave it on. So when you turn it on and the channel is taken, it'll show you interference. So you can see from this video that I set my Shure SLX to the exact same channel as what my ULXD is set to right now. And when I turned it on, it would say interference. This channel is already taken, so you need to scan, which is incredibly valuable. I love that they included that in here. It's super cool. Custom groups. So this is if you're using it with Shure software, which, again, this isn't really about what this video is about, but you can set up custom groups for more advanced wireless frequency management. But again, that's not really what this video is about. The antenna bias, you can turn it on or off, and you can see this in the manual. If you're using it with active antennas, you can provide DC power bias to it. But that's a setting that you'd use if you're using like those external antennas or something like that. TV format, in all honesty, this one's over my head. I found this on Wikipedia and this in the manual. I just leave it at 6 megahertz. This is honestly over my head. I've never even seen that as an option with wireless. So if you understand that, please leave a comment down below. I'll admit when I don't know something, that's definitely over my head. But those are basically all the options in here. There's quite a few options in here, but I think most of the time you're going to do, the naming and also turning on like encryption and the interference settings are really nice. Being able to update the firmware and being able to lock stuff are the main things you're going to use, but all those extra options are in there as well if you need them. All right, we're getting even darker for the transmitter. So basically it has this 4 button right here. Oh man, you're not gonna be able to see that unless I turn the lights on. So you have this 4 button right here. So it swipes either left, right, up, or down. So up or down scrolls through the menus. You have exit to the left and enter to the right. First of all, you can scroll through the display settings. So if you want to see it like that. So you can see the battery indicator, you can see the RF power, you can see the megahertz that's on, or you can see the group and channel, but you can scroll through different settings and you can see the name of it and stuff like that. So you get a few options in there. So if I want to go through the menu, you hit enter and you basically just have radio and utility. Those are the only 2 options that you get. With radio, you can manually set some of these here. So you can set the group and channel to whatever you would like it to. I'm just going to go ahead and not do that. I can set the group or the channel, or I can manually set the frequency here if I would like to do that as well, which again, I'm not going to do. And I can set the RF power right here as well. You can either set it to 1, 10, or 20. 10 is usually standard, so you don't have to do that unless you're going a really long distance. So not a whole lot of settings in there, but the utility one can be nice, so you can lock certain things. So you have menu lock, power lock, menu and power lock. So if you don't want anything bumped by accidents, but the battery, if you see the battery, what type of battery is it? But are you using alkaline, NIMH, or lithium batteries? So the display of the battery is actually more accurate, which is great. You can see info on the version of whatever you're using, so you can see the software and see if you need to do a firmware update. You can also reset it, which again, I'm not going to do. Mic offset and mute mode. So mic offset, I found this in the manual about it. So if you're using multiple transmitters to the same receiver, this is a good way to compensate. So if the body pack, if you want it set louder than the handheld, you can do that here. So say I'm using this with a body pack and with a handheld, I can set this to be, up by 12 decibels or something like that. And then the body pack will be at 0 so that I don't have to keep adjusting the gain on the receiver, which can be pretty useful. And then the mute mode is really cool. You have on or off. So what that does, let me give you some light again since this is the last menu, is when you flip this on or off. So right now, mute mode is off, so it kills the power and then turns back on. And then it needs to take a second to sync to this. It doesn't take super long, but if you want it to just act as a mute switch, so when you pull this down, it's just muted and then you turn it on and it's automatically back on and getting audio. So the RF is always connected, just the audio is muted. So that can be useful if you're doing speeches or something like that and you need it very quickly to turn off and on and you don't need that few seconds it takes to resync up from turning power off and power on, or just a mute switch on or off, which is really cool. Lots of different options in this thing. Okay, so there's multiple configurations that you can get with the Shure ULX-D system. This one is actually interesting. So on most websites, they mostly sell them separate. They sell the receiver and the transmitter separate. So first things first, let me just mention is that you do have to look at the band, make sure that they are in the same band. So if you get a receiver that is in the G50 band, which is what this one is in, that I have, you have to buy a transmitter that is in the G50 band as well. So for example, the G50, that one goes from 470 megahertz up to 534 megahertz. And then the H50 goes from 534 to 598 megahertz. So if you buy a transmitter that is in the G50 band, you're not going to get it to work with the H50 system. So just make sure you're matching the bands of your transmitter and your receiver. So one of the coolest things about this system, I said before, is that it has a single, a dual, and a quad receiver, which is really great. If you're going to use 4 of these at once, you might as well get them all in one rack. So as far as the components that you can get as the transmitter, you can either get a handheld, which includes common mics like the SM58, the Beta 58, one of my favorites, the Beta 87A and C, stuff like that. It does come with the KSM9 as well. If you're interested in a really high-end mic, again, I'll post links in the description down below to those. You can also use it with a body pack, which is usually used if you're going to use it with an instrument like guitar, bass, or violin or something like that. You'll need that. However, you can also use it with like a lavalier mic or with like a headset mic or something like that. So again, links will be to all of those down below. They also do have the gooseneck bass wireless transmitter. So you can see you can plug in a gooseneck mic into that and then it transmits. So that's good if you're using it with like a conference call or something like that. Also, I hadn't seen this one until I was doing research for this video, the wireless boundary microphone transmitter, which I hadn't seen. This is an interesting one that you sit on like a desk or something like that, and it transmits for like conference calls. I think that's more for like meetings and stuff like that. I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with that one, but there is an option to do that as well. Again, links to all of it will be in the description down below. All right, so as far as pricing, so I'm going to go over the receivers first. This is a very high-end, very professional wireless system, so you are going to have to spend some money in order to get a really good system. So the system is a little more expensive. So the ULX single receiver, that is going to run you about $1,000, $1,000, $1,020. It'll fluctuate. If you get a dual receiver, this is where it starts to get pretty pricey. It gets up to about $2,900. And then when you get the quad, that's when it's going to run you about $5,850. Again, the price will fluctuate based on sales and stuff like that, but you do pay more for that convenience of having it all in one rack. It is a little steep on the price increase. However, it is definitely worth it if you're looking at a super high-end wireless system. So using it with a body pack, the body pack is going to cost you about $500. If you do plan to get it with a headset mic or a lavalier mic, it really just depends on the mic that you're going to get. So those will range from, as low as I've seen is like $40 up to $500-ish. That really just depends on the mic. But I do have a feeling most of you are going to use it with instrument or with a handheld mic. So looking at the handheld mics, cheapest one is the industry standard SM58, which is going to run you about $550. Something like the Beta 58 is going to run you about $650, and then going up to the Beta 87, which is one of my favorite, and that's actually what this one is about $730. So it goes up about $100 for each level up that you go. It costs about $100. And then of course, if you want to go crazy and get the super high-end KSM9 system, that one's going to run you about $1,200, which is more than the receiver, which is crazy. That's how high-end that microphone is. So if you plan to use it with any of these configurations, it's basically going to cost you about $1,500 minimum in order to get it. So again, you are paying for a higher-end system here. But is it worth it? I'm going to get to that in just a second. I want to just cover some accessories really quick. I do recommend getting using the battery, the SB900 lithium-ion battery, you get more battery life and you get an exact indicator instead of just the bars. You can see how much battery life is left. And you do have the ID rings that you can get, so multicolored rings that go on the bottom. So it's easy to see which one is Bob's mic and which one is Steve's mic and so on and so forth. You can get an antenna distribution system. So if you do plan to use this with multiple wireless systems, you can plug all of the antennas into the antenna distribution system, and then you only have like one pair of antennas instead of, 5 or 6 or however many you're using. And if you get one of those, you can get one of the directional antennas as well. So links for all of those will be in the description down below. All right, last but not least, is it worth it for this system? Who's this for? And what's the comparison between the ULXD and the QLXD? So should you get the QLX or the ULXD? Because in my opinion, those are both very high-end professional wireless systems. So I'm basically going to compare those two. If you're just a hobby player, I don't think you need the QLX, but if you're a professional player, this is what you're looking at. If you're a hobby player and you have the money to spend on it, don't get me wrong, it's still a great system. But as a professional, which one should you get, the QLX or the ULX? Something interesting about these is a QLXD has the same available frequencies, in RF tuning bandwidth. They both have 64 megahertz of RF tuning bandwidth. So the RF tuning bandwidth isn't a really big deal. So first of all, the pros about the ULXD, I love that it has the interference info. That is extremely helpful. And, the Axient does that as well. But being able to turn it on and see, oh, am I on a clean channel or do I need to scan? That's a huge plus. I do really love that about the ULXD over the QLXD. Ultimately, to me, it really just depends on how many of these you're going to put in a rack together, or you're going to be using multiple wireless systems. If you're just getting it by yourself, if it's just, your wireless mic that you use in your band or something like that, QLX should probably be fine because you don't need the dual or the quad receiver for it. And again, they have about the same range. It's got only close to the same battery life, same RF tuning bandwidth, stuff like that. If you're only using one of them, QLX is probably the way to go. If you're using 2 or 4 or more, I think it's worth it to get the ULX-D series because you get that quad and dual receivers. That's definitely worth it, in my opinion, in order to get that. And then just as a reminder, the SLXD does have a dual one as well. So if you're not looking to spend as much money, but you want to get like 2 of them in one rack, especially if you're only using 2, then that's great. But if you're starting to use multiple wireless, the ULXD is definitely the way to go because of the fact that it can fit, 4 or 2 in one rack space, which is really great. The other reason why you might want to get a ULX over the QLX is if during this video you saw some of the features, the extra features that were in this that were not in my QLXD video that really would benefit you, in that case, then it would be worth it to get the ULXD system. To me, if you have the budget to go up to the ULXD system, yeah, I mean, you're never going to complain about having a better wireless system. But if you're using 2 or 4 or more, I definitely would recommend the ULXD system. That's just me personally. So, and then just to wrap it up, this did used to be my exact system. This was my exact system. I actually sold it to my drummer. So I sold this to my drummer. Why did I sell it? Well, because I actually ended up getting the Axient Digital, which is the highest level wireless system used by Justin Timberlake and Super Bowl and stuff like that. So the Axient Digital is the final video in my video Shure Wireless series. So you'll have to subscribe and ring the bell in order to see why I ended up getting the Axient, what's better about that, what's even better about that than the ULXD system. So hope that helped you guys out. If you made it to the end of this video, please just do me a favor and just hit the like button. It really does a lot to help out. Please, the YouTube algorithm gods, recommend my video to more people. So I would really appreciate that. Again, if you do decide to purchase this system or any of the systems that I recommend, using the links in the description is a free way to help out the channel. It doesn't cost anything extra to you and is just a way to help out the channel so I can do more videos like this. So I would appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. Don't forget to check out my Shure Wireless playlist, which you can see on the screen right now, to check out some of the other videos. Maybe the ULXD is too expensive for you and you want to look at one of the other ones. Feel free to check those out. Don't forget to follow me on my social media pages. It's Scott Ewell Music. That's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Instagram's definitely my favorite personally, so follow me on there. Thank you guys again for watching. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.